my goodness. That how dare you at the end was kind of surprising. It was great. Hey everybody, so great to see you tonight. I am emceeing this tonight. Sandy is the woman behind the curtain, and of course we have the illustrious Nick Humphreys and the very illustrious Antonio Reid. So, hello guys, it's so good to see both of you. How are you guys doing today? Hope you're doing good.
Yeah, nice to see you, Jan.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
doing. I'm doing good. Yeah, nice to see you. Yeah,
All right. All right. Well, guys, we have a pretty cool show lined up for you today. Only one article to kind of get us in the mood called Gobsmackingly Bananas. Yes, it actually says that in the article. And lots of lovely charts. And Nick, Antonio, and I will all be weighing in on the latest climate fuckery as is so popularly known as right now. So, anything that you guys want to say before we go gobsmackingly bananas? No?
No,
Okay.
I think we should just dive in.
Let's go ahead and dive in, guys. So, this article
yeah,
just came out in The Guardian, and it says gobsmackingly bananas. Scientists stunned by planet's record September heat. The carbon emissions driving the climate crisis and rapid arrival of an El Nino event are to blame, researchers say. So let's dive in. Just came out 2 days ago, Wednesday. Global temperatures soared to a new record in September by a huge margin, stunning scientists and leading one to describe it as absolutely gobsmackingly bananas. The hottest September on record follows the hottest August and the hottest July, with the latter being the hottest month ever recorded. High temperatures have driven heat waves and wildfires across the world. September 2023 beat the previous record for that month by zero point 0.5 degrees C, the largest jump in temperature ever seen. September was about 1.8 C warmer than pre industrial levels. Data sets from European and Japanese scientists confirm the leap. And check this thing out. Talk about a crazy exponential jump. This particular chart, which goes from 1940 to 2020, so basically what a 80-year period right there looks like, that is the last 80 years. And if you look at this thing, it is just, well, 2023, we all know 2023 is not like the other years. It just is not. And the amount it jumped in 2023, yes, El Nino, but there are other factors. Nick and Antonio, you guys feel like giving your reactions to this crazy graph?
yeah.
Um,
I can go first. Yeah, I was just gonna say it's been really amazing to watch, scary even to watch what's been happening in 2023 as far as the climate is concerned. I mean, we've seen you know I mean the biggest thing has been the oceans, just how warm the oceans are across the world, across the planet, and we've seen a lot of problems because of the very warm oceans. The tropical cyclone season in the North Atlantic is very active, even though we have an El Nino year. You have you had about a month ago now. You had tropical cyclone Daniel. It was named Daniel in the Mediterranean that caused thousands of deaths in Libya from torrential rains that destroyed, caused overtopping of dams and caused flooding in some cities in Libya. You had obviously big typhoons in the Western Pacific, and coral bleaching. Just all over the northern hemisphere, coral are suffering from the intense heat, and the atmosphere is responding with these incredible temperatures and heat waves. I mean, here in Fargo, even Fargo, North Dakota, where I am, we had a record high temperature of 95 degrees on October 1st. I mean, now it's
Oh
cold.
my
It's in the
God.
50s right now. But yeah, so we had like a huge like weather whiplash going on this week. But yeah, October 1st, it was 95 degrees and it was 93 in Minneapolis and on October 1st. It
Mm-hmm.
was just, I had my air conditioner cranked up trying to stay cool. So, I mean, it's just amazing what's been happening. I mean, seen the hurricane that weakened to a tropical storm and hit California and brought heavy rain, torrential rain to parts of Southern California. I mean, it's been an incredible year, and so yeah, what we're seeing is just sort of an exclamation point to the season, and I'm curious but a little worried what we're going to see this winter as far
Yeah.
as combination of El Nino and global warming. Yeah,
Yeah, I find the graph to be, at least 2023, to be incredibly anomalous. I mean, you're looking at that, and people who argue that climate change is a natural cycle. You can just see in this month of September, for most of the people living today, there's a clear indication that that was a previous climate. We are really now in beyond uncharted territories, right? 2023 is showing us really the tip of the scale. I mean, we really are just in the beginning of charting these uncharted waters for the first time in humanity. There was an archaeological discovery um, footprint that was recently discovered that now postdates humanity's arrival here to North America. Um,
Really? How old was it?
so previously, humanity's arrival to North America, was about 13,000 years. But now scientists are confirming that it is somewhere closer between 20 to 25,000 years that humanity had arrived not only to North America but also to the South American continent. What's amazing here is that even with that expanded paleoclimate timeline, we are truly living in a phenomenally unique time. Um, just earlier this week, the state of Florida endured some of the worst air quality conditions in its history due to how Canadian wildfire smoke had percolated through the atmosphere and ended up over the state of Florida. Okay,
My
these are
God.
the first humans, the first Floridians, who probably ever have breathed in Canadian wildfire smoke. Um, and so this graph that we're seeing is a visual representation of the anomalies that were starting to appear, many of which that Nick just detailed for us. But yeah, certainly so. It is frightening to be on planet Earth and see that we are advancing so quickly away from our Holocene baseline that allowed us to develop the way that we have today.
Mm, mm, mm. So well put, Antonio. It is scary how quickly things are arising now, and I'm kind of wondering if there aren't many interlacing feedbacks that are sort of converging and all affecting each other and causing it to be even hotter. There are many factors. So let's go ahead and continue through this article, and then there's some more juicy charts down below. The heat is the result of the continuing high levels of carbon dioxide emissions combined with a rapid flip of the planet's biggest natural climate phenomenon, El Nino. Previous 3 years saw La Nina conditions in the Pacific Ocean, which lowers global temperature by a few tenths of a degree as more heat is stored in the ocean. So conditions have now rebounded to an El Nino event, which releases ocean heat and drives up temperatures. It's all but certain that 2023 will be the hottest on record, and 2024 may even exceed that, as the heating impact of El Nino is felt in most in the year after it begins. Now, this quote is great, guys. September was, in my professional opinion, as a climate scientist, absolutely gobsmackingly bananas, said Zeke Hosfather at the Berkeley Earth Climate Data Project. And
Mm.
the thing that caused that tweet, if you see the tweet here by Zeke Hosfather, you can see all of the different years since the 1950s, 60s, and through the present day, the monthly global temperature anomalies. And it's really clear, guys. I'd love to hear your reaction, but the 1950s and the 1960s were pretty constant. There wasn't much temperature raising then. The 1970s, you begin to see a little bit of the liftoff. The 1980s, it's entering a new territory. And now, since the 1980s, these last 40 years, every year seems to be hotter than the one before until 2023, which is the big black line. Um, Guys, what do you think of this graph that Zeke Hosfather put out? It's pretty amazing, eh?
Certainly so. I mean, I think what this demonstrates is a sort of snapping. I think about the climate being like a plywood. There's some bend, there's some flex, but now we're starting to, and this is one of the major ones here. Clearly, I mean, this is not too different than some of the ocean temperatures that graphs that we've seen that have really started to take off even from the previous state of warming that we've been witnessing. It seems to me that we are entering in an accelerated destabilization.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
2023
think
is just,
acceleration is definitely right. Yeah, I was just gonna say that it just seems. I mean, we've had El Nino years before. Early 1980s, 1982, I believe, the early 1990s, 97, 2010, 2015, 16. We've had these years before where we've had these sort of shocks to the climate system the with El Nino sort of shoving things along a little bit harder. But this year, just everything, all the graphs just look different. It looks like 2023 is in a whole league of its own, and you have to wonder is 2024 going to look similarly like 2023? Or is it going to look dramatically different from 2023? Even how accelerated and can the warming get? In a matter of a couple of years, and because look at these graphs, the ocean graphs, the temperature graph we're looking at right now. 2023 is just in a whole new league of its own. It's kind of like it's separated from the rest of the pack. And the pack is all of the previous years prior to, and you just have to wonder what's going on. Because El Nino is like a push to the system. It's doing more, but there's something else going on, and obviously we have global climate change. Global warming is what's going on, but what about it is causing this to occur, where we're seeing everything, all these graphs be in a whole different ball game from what we've had in previous years, previous El Nino years, even. So, yeah, it's
mm-hmm.
we're in we're in uncharted territory. I think is what I'm trying to say.
We are. And if you compare the Septembers, Sandy, in the next chart down where it says global surface air temperature in September, this chart, which just is a single red line going from 1980 to 2020, the September's averaged for the last, what, 43 years. Or 2023. So you can see again, it is out of the range of normal. And will it bounce back? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. What's your feeling on that, Antonio and Nick, looking at this comparison of September's, for the last 43 years? Do you think
Well,
that 2024 is going to bounce back down, or do you think that this is going to set a new standard, or what do you think is going to happen?
I certainly think that temperatures are likely to oscillate. 2024 might be higher than 2023, but I would suspect that while 2025 or 2026 would be lower than perhaps 23 and 24, it would be higher than 20 through 22. Um, so I do think it would still represent, just like the rest of the graph that we're looking at here. Um, you know, the climate absorbs these, let's say, intense gyrations, um, but they are indicative of the acceleration of the trend that we face. So I would suspect that we would certainly have no reprieve, even if temperatures did not continue to skyrocket up in the sort of grisly fashion they've demonstrated as of late. Um, and I think what's point Nick makes is quite salient because um, there were two historical phenomenal um, El Nino years, 98 and 16.
Right,
And those are just now footnotes in comparison to what's happening.
right. And in 98, do you guys recall that more or less, if you advance from 98 to like 2010, 2011, because 98 was such a super El Nino, it appeared, if you were trying to cherry pick the data, and this is what the Republicans did in their disinformation campaign, it appeared that because 98 was such a super El Nino, the next 12 years were not really significant because they were kind of lost in the noise of 98. I'm just wondering if it's going to be somewhat the same now, and that maybe after this peak, which is 2023 El Nino, maybe in the next 12 years, one could only hope, right?
Nick,
Yeah, I mean they'll always be cherry picking. The deniers will always cherry pick,
Yeah,
and
I
I can
know.
see that being a possibility. Yeah, that you could very well have this intense El Nino event, and then things die down, but the long term trend is still going upwards. But it just they'll cherry pick and be like, well, this isn't the hottest year on record this year, or the next year, or the year after, so that means global warming has stopped, and that's not the way it works. But that's what they'll argue, and I mean that's kind of unfortunately the reality that we face is that the worse things get, the more the deniers deny, because it's to do otherwise would be a basically a psychological catastrophe for them if they realize how bad things are for them and not just for those that actually admit that climate change is real. But yeah, I agree with Antonio that we're probably going to see. 2024 probably will be around the same, or if not warmer than 2023, just based on history. But then we could enter another La Nina, and then things could cool down year to year. But that oscillation is trending upwards. So you have this oscillation up, down, up, down, up, down. But look what's happening. It's going up and up and up and up. So yeah, gradually the average of the years is going up. So that's what's going to continue to happen, and because there's no stopping global warming. I mean, we're not limiting our fossil fuel use. We're not slowing down the melting of the ice, the sea ice. The methane is coming out of the permafrost a little bit more every year. So I mean, that's the effect that it's gonna have on the climate.
Oh, it's so scary. You guys want me to continue reading on and see if something else comes up?
Well, I certainly
Samantha
do.
Burgess. Oh, oh,
I,
sorry,
Sure.
Antonio.
yeah, I'm sorry. I was just going to comment on one of our friends, Mr. Cook's last comment there that was on the
Oh, is that
screen,
right? Let's see.
um,
What was it?
about it's about the refugee crisis at the border. I do want to
Oh,
comment on that. Certainly is, Mr. Cook certainly is right that the refugee crisis that we're experiencing in the United States right now, not just in Texas. What's getting ahead is that Governor Abbott is putting these individuals on buses and sending them to Democrat held states and cities across the union. And this has triggered a backlash against immigration. In Chicago, we're starting to see backlashes. In Ohio, or excuse me, in New York, we're starting to see backlashes to this. Where these places, California, another place where these immigrants have been sent from the state of Texas. And what this is showing is, I spoke about this, but not only me, people like Gwen Dyer have been speaking about this. Of course, this is in the Age of Consequences, 2007. But the time is coming that the American public, even the most ardent Bernie Sanders supporter in 2016, is going to demand that Congress close the border. And in so doing, that is going to be a horrific tragedy occurring at the American and Mexican Rio Grande. And a lot of that pressure is going to be climate related. It is already climate related, and it will continue to be increasingly climate related as the climate destabilizes people's ability to sustain themselves on the land.
yeah, absolutely. That is so scary. And there is a lot of change that's going to happen as this climate crisis worsens, and we're going to see it right before our eyes. Good point, Antonio. Thank you for making those.
And Mr.
Um,
Cook,
yeah.
Yeah, I could
And
also
Mr. Cook.
add. Yeah, I was gonna also add that there's a lot of like meteorologically, just talking about what's going on climate wise. There's a lot of heat and drought down in Mexico and Central America right now. I mean, Antonio, you talked about a few months ago. You traveled to Central America, didn't you? And you experienced some of that heat down there.
uh, El
Yeah, I mean,
Salvador, yes.
yeah, it's yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's bad.
and
I mean, it's
and
very
you
bad in some
experienced
places. A lot of
first
drought down there.
and you experienced firsthand how it is with the wet bulb temperature, right? I mean, you saw that, Antonio. You had not, I don't know how dangerous it was, but you got very dehydrated and exhausted, and you were just down there on vacation, right?
To recount my experience very quickly, um, the lowest temperature I saw in El Salvador was maybe 78, 79 degrees. Now, to the North American audience, that doesn't sound that bad, but you have to keep in mind that the humidity daily did not reach below 80. And so these are
Mm-hmm.
intense conditions on the body day and night. The daytime temperature never hit 90, but it sat right around 88, 89 every day. Um, Within 10 minutes, I was generally 10 minutes of walking drenched in sweat. I could not stop sweating. Even sitting in the shade, I continued to sweat. Drinking ice cold water, I continued to sweat. The only thing that could stop me from sweating was being in air conditioned, for which there was very little. There was only two places that I could receive air conditioning in the entire city that I was in, and that was a very small. It's not a bank, but it's probably about the size of a gas station bathroom, and it has three ATM machines and air conditioning. And the only other place is my hotel room, not the hotel I stay at, just the room. Okay. Um, and at one
And
point,
so if you don't have air conditioning, what do you do? You know, maybe people don't have air conditioning.
well, a lot of the people, first of all, the bodies down there are climatized, okay, already, which means that their bodies are at a higher tolerance of these things. And the people, they live their life around these conditions, right? So people are up, 4:30, 5, 6, 7 in the morning. Those are go hours. People are moving. But as the sun comes up around 9, you start to see people start to move away from work, move away from outside, and then really people don't start coming back out until about 6, when the sun starts to die down, and then between 6 and 10, those are the go hours, and then you kind of repeat that cycle. But for me, the danger was I could not drink the water. Um,
Mm.
I have to buy all the water that I could drink. So that was also a problem, which means I spent a lot of money drinking water, and I could not drink enough water. Um, and at one point, when I was out at dinner, um, I was telling my friends, I was bragging about how much I was going to eat. I completely lost my appetite. I was about to throw up, and I had to rush back to my hotel to get back in my air
Mm.
condition. I hate to
My
sound so
God.
American, but that was
But
that was
no,
really
it's so true, Antonia. What your body's used to is how you're going to react. You can't tell your body you're being a wimp, stop reacting that way. It's going to happen that way for you, you know? And
certainly.
that's what's going to be happening more and more. I can see it like in the Gulf states, Texas, all those areas, and you
Well,
add the high humidity on it.
what people I think need to be alarmed about is that here I got a taste of something. I went somewhere where these conditions were. Okay, what is going to kill people? What is killing people is when we start to see these massive heat anomalies hit places like New York, hit places like Seattle, hit places like France, hit places like the UK, where bodies are not climatized to these type of extremes. And for me, I mean, I mean, it was. I really do believe that if I did not have access to air conditioning, I would have died within 48 to 72 hours,
My God.
unquestionably, unquestionably, with no way to cool down. The ocean waters were sitting firmly at 87 degrees, no way to cool down. There was if there was no air conditioning, there was no way to cool down for me.
Mm.
So it's
Yeah.
moments like that I think are really going to pose danger to human health and safety.
Hmm. And we're all going to be experiencing them in different ways depending on what happens. Um, let's just see if we can get a little further here through this article. The heat hit record levels within many countries too, including France. And Sandy sent over a um, chart, and I think actually we're going to review it. I guess we should move along. Germany and Poland, the UK saw its joint hottest September on record. So this is like heat records are being set all over Europe, in Australia. Observations of Australia's climate in September are shocking. Figures show where maximum temperatures were at the highest record, with many areas 3 to 5 C above average. Rainfall deficits are primed for drought, and summer is going to be brutal. So, Australia is got it going on temperature in, um, I guess, rainfall and what is that one? Oh, maximum temperature anomaly. So there are three Australian charts that show the latest conditions in Australia. So all over. Yeah, what's driving this? Well, human caused global heating and El Nino are the biggest factors causing the record breaking temperatures. Other factors may be contributing small increases as well, House Father said. These include an uptick in the 11-year solar cycle, cuts in solar blocking sulfur emissions from shipping and industry, and a volcanic eruption in Tonga that released a large amount of water vapor, which traps heat. So, this is basically what we are seeing the world over. And Sandy, if you want to go over to that presentation, we can start to view various parts and take a look at some of these charts. And I think you may have gotten a little movie in there as well. Yeah. So this was an article that recently came up in The Guardian, out of control. And it shows this very same uh, chart that we just went over, where you can see the exponentiation of all this year compared to the others. So yeah, thank you. So this says humanity deep in the danger zone of planetary boundaries. And on climate, we're following a pathway that takes us unequivocally into disaster. We're headed for 2.5, 2.6, or 2.7 C above average, a place we haven't seen for the past 4 million years. There's no evidence whatsoever that humans can survive that environment. So that's a pretty dire, view, and I think it's right on. And we're getting hotter faster. That's for sure. Let's take a look at this next chart, and this is one. This is the one that we were just talking about, the global surface air temperature anomaly in September. So these are the Septembers for the last 43, no, 83 years, I guess, the last 83 years. So there you go. I mean, it started really taking off in the 80s. And from that point in the 80s, we just haven't ever looked back. Elliot put this one out the other day. This is the daily global 2-meter temperature 30-day running mean. And it's good because it's so visual. And yellow is very hot, orange is hot, black is less hot, red is less hot than black. So this is a really good graphic about how the temperature has gone up. And I believe that this starts in 1979. So this is the last 43, 44 years of data. Um, What do you guys think of this pictorial, this representation of horror?
Yeah, it's very let's say abstract. It's beautiful. I would only pay $1 million for it, right? Yeah, it's. I see the devil in it, maybe. No, no, it is terrifying. It
It
is quite
is.
terrifying. And again, just another visualization of the retreat out of the cool climate zone. Um, I mean, just in a very stark fashion, I can say.
Yeah. No,
Nick,
it's.
you muted yourself.
Oh,
Nick,
Nick,
you muted yourself.
unmute,
Oh, I'm
Nick.
sorry. I'm good.
Mhm.
Sorry about that. I was just starting to say um, that it makes me think about like what wonder what it was like to live in a climate that was stable because I mean it's not only like you're we're experiencing like a warmer world that's stable itself, like we've transferred to a warmer world. We're transferring to a world that's warming and doing so at an accelerated pace so that we never have a chance to even adapt to those kind of changes. So, you know, for thousands of years, the world experienced relative stability or changes in climate that were so gradual that it was stable on time scales of multiple human lifetimes, but now we're, I can starkly say that the climate of the places I grew up in Seattle in this case, is starkly different in 2023 than it was in 1997 when I was in 98 when I was in high school, or in 1989 when I was a little boy. You go from, oh, you can expect rain and until July, and then you get morning clouds and afternoon sun, temperatures in the 70s. Now you can expect heat domes that come over in June and roast your city in triple digit heat. It's just, and the changes are happening so quickly that they're happening within time scales of not hundreds to thousands of years. Now it's in time scales of years to tens of years, and it's just absolutely incredible.
Hmm. It really is. It really is. Sandy, let's go on to the next slide here.
Oh,
Oh, okay. So, Antonio, I think this one has your name written all over it.
uh, my concern is that we have repeatedly and intentionally
This is that
adjusted.
Kevin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, adjusted in a manner in which the
Please go
evidence.
ahead.
Okay, okay. I'm sorry. We're a little delayed there. Um, we've offered
Everyone's
a
talking over each other.
we've offered a challenging scenarios without upfront statements of how we've stuffed them full of CDR, carbon dioxide removal, and sucked two fingers up to equity to get them to politically acceptable. And those of us not producing the nonsense scenarios have sheepishly turned away and remained quiet about this ubiquitous scam, uh, or worse still, suspended any integrity and lent them public support whilst keeping our fingers crossed and saying something quiet, different in private spaces. Um, I know that Kevin Anderson has been somebody who has been very vocal against the process happening at the conference of parties, against the politicalization of climate science. And one of his biggest concerns, of course, about the IPCC um, is about the reliance on really fantical technology, here, carbon dioxide removal. The fact that we still have that. Now, there are technologies that have been deployed today, experimental, small scale, that have been successful in removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. But what Dr. Anderson is saying here is that it is completely nonsensical. It is completely fantical, okay, to rely on that as a basis for our climate scenarios, okay? And we would be fools um, if we did, in fact, accept that because it's not likely to work and it's not likely to work on a scale and in a time frame that matters to people today. Um, and it is quite scandalous, I agree with Dr. Anderson, that many climate scientists have a different private position than the one they're flaunting publicly.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, Antonio. And Sandy, do we have that movie in here somewhere? What is that? Here? Okay.
If we are not respecting the environment, then nature will take our own lives, right? We have example today.
There were bodies on the ground. It was horrifying.
It's getting into the 50 Celsius. I don't know how this is humanly possible to function.
Landslides and flash floods in India's northern state of Himachal Pradesh.
We lost many lives, we lost many houses. People were worshipping in a temple, went to pray to God to save themselves from the rain. And suddenly the flood came, and every single person who was present in that moment of prayer is struck.
Wildfires on the island of Maui. The inferno burnt most of the historic town of Lahaina to the ground. Hundreds of people remain unaccounted for.
My parents lost their home that my grandparents built. It's gone. It's been spread to the ground. My family member, Brian, he got an alert on his phone saying that you need to evacuate. And he said that he heard explosions, and it still feels so surreal. Like, is this really happening? Is everything really gone?
Beijing experienced its heaviest rainfall in 140 years. At least 20 people have died in eastern provinces.
So a relative of mine, she lives in Zhuozhou, south of Beijing. It would have been midnight in China. I first saw a message with absolutely no warning saying the water is in the basement, it's coming up, there's no light, electricity's been cut. I was extremely worried. So we were sent pictures of submerged ground floor flats. We were getting kind of drib-drab information saying we're basically putting sandbags out. We don't know if what's going to happen tonight because we can't see anything. There was no electricity, so their phone could die at any moment. It was touch and go. The gushing water, it's like a river. And, you know, anybody who would have been caught in that would have just been carried away.
In Palestine, the heat waves that we faced this summer, absolutely crippling. It's getting into the 50 Celsius. In some countries in the Arab region, you cannot function whatsoever. Water supply is intermittent, even in the major cities. It only arrives 2 days a week. The most immediate thing that I'm seeing right now is that people are really facing difficulty in their daily work. I found that my house is not suitable anymore in the summertime. I don't know how this is humanly possible to function in these kind of temperatures. There's a sense of hopelessness as well. It's really in the hands of government, developing nations and the global north, not taking responsibility for its historical responsibility for the climate crisis.
Wow. Pretty tough stuff, guys. It seems that there is no place safe anymore. Seems like everywhere you look, there are catastrophes, floods, droughts, fires, all sorts of things.
Certainly so.
So this is an interesting one because this is the global sea ice. So this includes Antarctica and the Arctic, as well as all the glaciers that remain in the world. And the reason you've kind of got these double dips here like this is the Arctic is very seasonal, as is Antarctica as well. So that's kind of the shape of it. But what you can see here is just like every single other graph that we are looking at, 2023 is abnormally out of the mean. And look at this, global sea ice is way, way down. So that means things are changing very, very quickly now. What do you guys think of this graph here?
Well, it shows that the planet is hot. I mean, that's really what it is. That's what it's showing. I mean, the planet's running hot, and sea ice is suffering in the Arctic and Antarctic, and as a result, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the oceans are hot, so it makes sense that you'd have problems with sea ice growth. And I mean, I think Antarctica actually much of this is because of Antarctica. The sea ice that surrounds the Antarctic continent has been at very abnormally and record low territory for all much of 2023 actually, and so I mean, of course, the Arctic has been low as well, but um, yeah, I mean, it's very telling graph. All of these charts, whether you look at um, global average temperature, land air temperature, ocean temperatures, sea ice, they always showed the footprint of climate change, but 2023 is just like I said in a different field, different realm of its own in terms of what's happening.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I absolutely concur. I mean, this graph is again a great another indicator of the predicament that we are all in right now. That the biosphere, the cryosphere, the atmosphere, the hydrosphere is all going through. So yes, certainly I do concur with what Nick just said
Mm-hmm.
there.
And I think I misspoke earlier. This is global sea ice, so it doesn't include glaciers. It doesn't include any ice that's not on the sea. So this is basically, as you said, Nick and Antonio, a reflection of how hot the oceans are. And there was a moment where the sea ice was actually going up in Antarctica, I think in 2014. That realm like ten years ago, because more fresh water was coming off of the glaciers and
I want
cascading
to
out.
have an anecdote about that. I was still in college in 2014, and I remember I was
Right.
taking a public speaking class, and this very issue came up.
Yeah,
And
right.
just in hindsight, it's kind of funny because at the time people were saying, well, Antonio, literally, this was the question that was posed to me. Well, Antonio, what do you say to people now that, we're seeing that Antarctic sea ice is actually increasing? And I told people, it's so funny, again, now looking at this, especially in hindsight, is that, of course, you can't isolate any one particular year, and say that that identifies a trend. Here's a trend has been going down, and what we're seeing is a doubling down of the trend in 2023. Not something that was just anomalous, one time kind of slight rebound. No, that's more representative of the oscillatory nature of the change that we're undergoing.
Mm. And as the oceans become hotter, it becomes more difficult for sea ice to even form. And that's what we're seeing. So, this is a direct reflection of the very extreme heat that is going off in the oceans now. And it's just like going to be more and more difficult. And there will become a time, if the oceans continue to get hotter, where there won't be sea ice anymore. And we may see that with our own eyes. Surely we'll see it with the Arctic. I don't think the Arctic sea ice can last much longer, but I've been saying that for a long time. And things don't happen as quickly as we think they're going to happen. That's the problem with looking at this stuff all the time. You see the trends and you're like, oh, yeah, this thing's going to tank out. And then something will kick in and the sea ice will hold on for another few years. And of course, for us and humanity, the longer the Arctic sea ice can hold on, the better for us, because too many irreversible self reinforcing feedbacks of dominoes kick off when you don't have Arctic sea ice, as you guys know. And it's going to make life on Earth and the climate even more wacky than it is today.
Wacky certainly is one way of putting it.
Thank you, Sandy. I feel better now. All right.
Uh,
Nick, can you see this good enough to read it, or do you want me to give it a shot?
Yeah, I can read it. We cannot simply adapt to the current high temperatures because it's only going to get higher. There's no good news here,
Ooh,
which is yeah, that's pretty much sums it up. Yeah.
ooh, very scary stuff. And what is our last slide here? Let me
Oh,
look at the PowerPoint.
monthly
See
global
Same one
better.
you've had
Oh,
before,
okay.
but I thought this would be a good one for you guys to uh, talk a little bit more about, and then free association and some questions I have here.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the monthly global temperature anomaly. And so, again, the most obvious thing about this chart is this big old black line that is 2023, which hasn't been like any other year thus far. So, we're just kind of reinforcing this theme throughout this show again and again.
It's doubly heartbreaking for me to see the month of September um, be the first month to break down this way. In part because September is my birth month. It's the birth month of Bernie Sanders. It's also the birth month of Frodo and Bilbo Baggins in
And my
Tolkien.
daughter,
Said
Dawnzy.
Doc. Um, but it is a beautiful month. It is the reprieve from summer. Um, that is what September is supposed to be. It is the grace that we get after the heat, the brutality of the summer heat. And now we're seeing that completely break down. We're starting to see that September is losing its fall nature, it's or autumn nature, that it's becoming is being captured by summer. It is becoming in total a summer month, and that's what we're seeing here is that breakaway into the permanent summer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Nick, do
I
you
mean,
do you
yeah,
have
I
anything
agree.
to
Yeah, we've seen it both with September and even May. May is starting to get hotter in a lot of places than it used to be. Just the expansion of summer. Yeah, into spring's getting shorter and fall is getting shorter and summer is getting longer. That's basically the. And it's going to be interesting to see how um, winter looks in this country because typically with El Nino you have warmer than normal temperatures in the northern U.S. and um, heavier rainfall and cooler than normal temperatures in the southern U.S. and just because of the subtropical jet stream and things like that. So it'd be interesting to see if we have a season where there isn't a lot of snow and maybe there's record highs in the middle of winter in North Dakota, for example. If it's going to be the continuation of these record high temperatures and heat domes in the middle of winter. They won't be like summer heat domes, but they could be very um, have spring like temperatures in the middle of winter and for periods of time in some places, just because of the planet itself is so warm right now. So it's something to watch out for maybe this winter. If we get those Arctic blasts that we're used to getting here in the northern tier, or if we get a lot of warm temperatures instead.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Would you like to do some questions?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes, absolutely.
let me go through them. And I will start with Tommyist. Tommyist, are they predicting epic snowfalls in the northeastern U.S. this winter? I guess that could go to Nick.
I don't know what they're predicting as far as I'd have to check the and see like what the climate prediction center is saying, but so I think El Nino, typically you see a lot of above normal temperatures in the northern states, so you might have less snow, maybe. Depends if it just happens to get below freezing and you get a big storm, but um, don't know the answer to that fully.
Okay. Let's see here. Kristen Rose. Hi, Kristen. Will nuclear winter be beneficial? Well, people think of all kinds of things.
Beneficial for who, I guess, is the question.
Well, we can look at it this way. All right, a nuke going off is horrible, but it's the volcanic effect, the aerosol masking effect, I would imagine. And maybe, you know, nobody wants a nuclear winter.
I have no response to that. I'm just like,
It's
nuclear
terrifying.
winter. Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah, I think, Sandy, you encapsulated that right. Nobody wants a nuclear winter.
Right. Well, Patrick McNulty, of course, who wants more global sea ice? And he's got his program. Yeah, we all want that too. We want that. Let's see. This was back before. It's not really a question, but I'm concerned that the sea ice graph isn't following the past trends up and down. This tells that the changes are worse than just the loss itself. The pattern is changing.
Yeah, totally agree with you. It is anomalous in all ways. And yes, it's looking at the Antarctic sea ice and the Arctic sea ice together as a composite. And you're right, it's not following the other trend lines, even being out of trend, it's not following the trend lines. It's chaotic. And it's cutting a new pattern altogether. So you're absolutely right. It's terrifying.
Okay. Excuse me. Are zombie movies foreshadowing our future when mass migration runs rampant? Oh my gosh.
Well, I've always said Hollywood is always ahead of the trend, and they reflect reality somehow. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I could say, I was just gonna say, one thing to watch out for with global warming um, is increased like infectious diseases and even like
Oh.
potentially fungal infections. Yeah, like fungal infections because fungus, a lot of them can't live in the human body. Cause infection within the human body because it's too warm, and they're not adapted to those warm temperatures. But as temperatures increase, the adaptation may change, and you might see more infections by fungi, and not just like bacterial infections or other things like that. Um, there's a TV show on HBO. Some people will probably know that does that sort of zombie-ish future um, about a fungal pandemic and stuff like that. I mean, that's not reality, but you have to wonder what will happen to the rapid evolution of some of these infectious diseases as climate change evolves. Some of them that already infect humans will spread across the planet and more easily because of warmer air temperatures. And then you might have some infectious diseases that have been really isolated or not really occurring in humans that might occur in humans because of evolutionary change to try to adapt to the rapid change in climate. So it's something to, unfortunately, we might have to deal with down the pike.
well, I was going to say that one of my concerns about the impact that climate will have on our human societies is that as our societies start to break down, we can start to see it's a long process, right? But it doesn't take an entire social breakdown for pressures to start building up. No, 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 no. Just millions of people, a few million here, a few million there. immigrating across borders, showing up in new cities, showing up in new towns. And what do we start to see? We start to see increased social tensions, sentiments against those peoples, political tensions rise, military tensions in response to those, and then real demand and real pressure on resources, the availability of resources. And one thing the pandemic has highlighted for us all is that we are extremely vulnerable to resource shocks. And so as our resources become under more strain because they're first being attacked by the climate, then they're being attacked by population displacement, and then those displaced populations putting demand on the places that do have resources. I think we're entering an era where we're going to see, again, I'm a historian. I flipped through the pages of the Holocaust. I flipped through the pages of the American Civil War. I flipped through the pages of the First World War, Stalingrad. You see those pages are decorated with the bodies of young people. Okay, that's human history. And for me, I have a real fear that the great peace that we achieved post 1950, well, I guess a supposed peace, is now coming to an end. That we're going to go to a state where we're highly weaponized, highly militarized, highly retrenched, and highly recalcitrant, and being battered on all sides by a climate that's relentlessly against us.
Oh, well, on that note, let's find a little something else. Yeah.
Well said, man.
Looney
Definitely could
Tunes.
never.
I don't know if Looney Tunes is still here because he might have gone over to the letter hack, and that's Matt who is reading his his book tonight. He reads his book at 10 o'clock on Friday nights. Antonio and I were guests on letter hack. Okay, the question is, how can rain help with drought and the threat of Gulf seawater in the Mississippi River? So I think what maybe he means is the rain could it make any difference? Nick, do you know much about this one?
Well, it's not going to really make a lot of difference because the seawater intrusion is happening because of the part of Louisiana subsiding, and then global sea levels are rising. It would certainly help the drought on land, and there's actually really bad drought going on. Well, through a lot of the country, actually. We probably could have shown a map of that tonight. I mean, that's another thing going on in climate right now is drought across much of the United States. Um, but yeah, I mean, we're seeing with drought a lot of rapid swings between drought conditions and then heavy rainfall and drought conditions and heavy rainfall again, and it's that enhanced oscillation in the hydrologic cycle. That's basically what's going on, where we're getting those rapid swings in between drought and flooding and torrential rains. We're seeing that all over the world. We're seeing that in North Africa. Tropical storm Daniel did that in Libya. We saw it in China with areas of drought and then heavy rainfall, and then we're seeing it in the U.S. too. So, yeah, a lot of that, unfortunately, from the enhanced hydrologic cycle.
Okay. I've read speculation about melting ice affecting the Earth's crust. Is that true?
Well,
Yeah.
it's
Well, the balance shift. As the Antarctic sea ice melts, there's places where it's, a couple of kilometers thick on Antarctica, and that's a lot of weight. And also the redistribution, same with Greenland. There's a fault that runs right along the east of Greenland, all the way to the top of the Arctic, all the way down the entire Atlantic plate, and keeps extending on down. That's a very sensitive area. And there's actually a place where three plates come together right outside of the Mediterranean, where, outside of Spain, right? You've got all three plates coming together there, and they all are affected by the redistribution of weight as the ice melts. So I would expect that there could be more shifts, more volcanoes, more earthquakes, just due to the shifting ice around the world.
Yeah. So the term here is isostatic or isostatic rebound. And the way that you might want to think about this is, for those of you who've ever gotten on a trampoline, as you, the center of mass, moves to the middle of the trampoline, it bowls, it craters. But as you leave, the bulge begins to flatten out. Or if you jump, you'll have that type of motion. So this is replicated when the ice deglaciates. So when we see rapid deglaciation, that is rapid ice loss, what we see is, just as Jennifer pointed out, that this massive amounts of ice. I mean, these are the weights of mountains being moved in a very relatively short period of time, that causes the Earth's crust to flex under that and do a type of rubber band ricochet in slow motion, relatively speaking. But nonetheless, this isostatic rebound causes additional seismic activity in the localized areas. So we definitely should be concerned that as we rapidly deglaciate both Greenland and Antarctica, that we will be facing additional seismic activity as a response.
All right. Well, I'm going to put up one comment from Lucia, and then I think we're going to end the show because, guys, I'm dizzy, actually. All right. Lucia Rickson. The more you learn and you come to understand, wait a second. The more you learn and you come to understand about this current direction the world is on, the more scary it is, until it's beyond frightening. I've reached a stage that seems to be beyond grieving. Well, there's a lot of help out there. There's a lot of places that right, Jennifer? I mean, we've brought Michael Dowd, the post-doom collapsed acceptance. There's so much, and I suppose we'll bring it all on back.
Yeah, I like what Poppy just said. Man, I'm getting doom overload, turning to cat humor.
It's probably my fault.
Well, it's the material.
Yeah, Antonio, you're so damn heavy. So doomy.
Well, then. I'm going to say goodnight, everybody. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Tony. And Jen, why don't you do you guys do the goodbyes, and hopefully I'll see you guys on Tuesday in person with my face.
Yeah. Well, guys, I think we're all hypnotized watching the progression of 2023 and wondering what portents to the future it holds, and we are all fascinated by the science, and we're also brought face to face with our own mortality as humans. So if you feel a little gobsmacked, and you feel like the world has gone bananas, you're not alone. And if you get doom overload, we understand. And that's why we have this show all come together to kind of share these feelings bound to bring up.
Absolutely.
So Nick and Antonio, do you guys have any other things you'd like to add in here? No?
Okay.
No, I think I'm good. Thank you. Thank you guys for inviting me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good too.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for coming, and thanks, Sandy, for being the woman behind the curtain. We love you. We love all of you.